Welcome. Tonight we're moving into some darker territory. We're looking at the shadows behind the silver screen. This isn't about movie magic in the usual sense. It's about where fiction gets terrifyingly real. Unsolved mysteries, real tragedies connected to famous films. We've gathered some accounts, police notes, things like that. And tonight we just want to share these dark tales. Stories of people who vanished, victims of horrific crimes, and the really strange shadows that seem to hang over certain movie sets. These are the kinds of details that, well, they tend to stick with you. Makes you question things. Let's start in Massachusetts, Provincetown, actually. Back in 1974, a discovery that led to a half-century mystery known as the Lady of the Dunes. And it has this incredibly bizarre link to Jaws. So July 1974, this unidentified woman's body is found in the dunes at Race Point, and the state of the body, it's horrific. She was face down, on a blanket, almost decapitated, one side of her skull crushed, looks like by some kind of heavy tool. But it gets worse. The killer, they tried to erase who she was. Her hands were removed. Some teeth were taken out, too. Probably to stop anyone identifying her. You'd expect signs of a fight, right, with injuries like that? But there weren't any. Which points to two, frankly, terrifying ideas. Either she knew her killer really well, or she was asleep when it happened. Now here's where Hollywood comes in, sort of creeps into the picture. Under her head, almost like a pillow, investigators found a pair of Wrangler jeans and a blue bandana. The case just stalled. They exhumed her body 3 times over the years. 1980, 2000, 2013, nothing. No ID.
Yeah, and that lack of closure, that's what makes people search for answers anywhere, right? Which is how this Jaws connection surfaced. See, Jaws was filming not far away, maybe 100 miles or so, same year, 1974. And years later, someone was looking really closely at the movie, specifically that 4th of July crowd scene, freeze-framed it, and spotted an extra just walking through the background, wearing, well, Wrangler jeans and a blue bandana.
Wow.
And not just the clothes, her face, her build. It looked uncannily like the reconstructions they'd made of the Lady of the Dunes.
And the lead detective, Dennis Mello, he actually took this seriously. I mean, you have the timing, the location, the clothes.
It all lines up in this really eerie way.
The thought that this woman, whoever she was, might have been captured on film, right before she was brutally murdered, it adds this layer of dread you can't shake. Her identity is still a mystery. So from an unknown victim maybe caught on film, let's turn to someone who was in a film and then vanished completely. Temulin Leopard. You might remember her from Scarface. Small part, but memorable. She was the girl in the blue bikini during that infamous chainsaw scene. She's only 18. People thought she could be a big star in the 80s. Former beauty queen, lots of potential. But something happened. After she filmed another movie, Spring Break, she went to this party. And according to her friend, Wing Flanagan, afterwards she was just a completely different person. She developed this intense paranoia, like extreme, terrified someone was trying to poison her, wouldn't drink from open containers, barely left her room. She kept saying she saw something horrible that she wasn't supposed to. That was the only clue she gave.
And that shift, that intense fear, it seems really key. It wasn't just, teenage angst. Something triggered it. It got so bad that during the Scarface filming, the fake blood they used actually caused her to have a hysterical breakdown on set.
Yeah, they had her evaluated at a mental health facility.
And they found nothing. No drugs, no alcohol, just this overwhelming terror.
Right, and the day after she got out, she just bolted. Left home without even combing her hair, which was apparently very unlike her. Jumped in a car with a friend, Keith Roberts. She told him she'd been sleeping with a knife under her pillow. Said she was terrified and just needed to get away, start over somewhere else. But Roberts wouldn't drive her far, so she got out of the car at Cocoa Beach, Florida, and just vanished. That was 35 years ago. Still missing.
There are a couple of dark theories around her disappearance. One is that she might have been a victim of this serial killer active then, the so-called beauty queen killer. But the other theory ties back to that horrible thing she saw. Maybe something involving like drug rings or money laundering connected to powerful people. People who could make an 18-year-old girl disappear without a trace. And what's really disturbing, something the private investigator on the case pointed out, was how little the police seemed to be doing, almost like they weren't supposed to look too hard.
So the question lingers. Was what she saw somehow connected to her fate? It's chilling. That silence, that lack of answers, it's deafening sometimes. Which brings us to another really famous Hollywood mystery, the death of Natalie Wood. This happened back in November 1981. She was on her family yacht, the Splendor, with her husband, Robert Wagner, and Christopher Walken, who was her co-star in a movie at the time. Reports say there was a lot of drinking that weekend and tension. Apparently, Wood and Walken were getting close, and Wagner was extremely jealous. The yacht's captain, Dennis Davin, he later described this huge argument. Wagner allegedly smashed a wine bottle, yelling at Walken, asking him, what are you trying to do for my wife? Really explosive stuff. Then, around 1:30 in the morning, a distress call. Natalie Wood was missing from the yacht. They found her body hours later, about 7:30 a.m., floating in the water nearby. The initial ruling, accidental drowning.
Yeah, but that ruling just starts to fall apart pretty quickly when you look at the actual facts, especially about Natalie Wood herself. She had this intense fear of water, like a lifelong phobia, hydrophobia. So the idea that she just decided to hop into a little rubber dinghy alone in the middle of the night.
Wearing a nightgown, heavy socks, and a big parka, it makes no sense.
Exactly. And then there's the physical evidence. The autopsy found bruises on her body, a fresh cut on her cheek, and maybe the most telling thing, fingernail marks found scratched into the side of the dinghy like she was trying to pull herself up or clawing at it.
A struggle.
It points that way. Plus, the dinghy itself. The ignition was off, gear in neutral, oars locked away. It hadn't been used.
So she didn't take it out herself. If she fell, maybe she was pushed or fell during a fight, and then there were those witnesses.
Right. People on another boat nearby reported hearing screams around midnight, a woman yelling, "Help me!"
Yeah.
Then apparently a man's voice mocking her, saying something like, "Okay, honey, we'll get you." All these inconsistencies, they eventually led the coroner to change the cause of death, from accidental drowning to drowning and other undetermined factors.
Up to.
It basically acknowledges something violent or suspicious happened before she ended up in the water, but they couldn't prove exactly what.
And Walken's later comment about never getting involved in arguments between husbands and wives, it just adds to the whole unsettling picture.
Leaves it hanging. Yeah.
Was it just a tragic accident fueled by alcohol and anger? Or did that argument play a much bigger, darker role? We still don't know for sure. Okay, let's shift gears now from these specific unsolved cases to a whole pattern of disasters. So many bad things happened around one film that people started talking about a curse. We're talking about the 1976 horror classic, The Omen. The bad luck, or whatever it was, started almost immediately. Just before they began filming, the lead actor, Gregory Peck, his son, committed suicide. Then Peck himself had booked a flight to London for the shoot, canceled it last minute. The plane he would have been on, it crashed. Everyone on board died.
And that was just the start. The sources list this really unnerving series of events during production. Like the animal handler who worked with the baboons for that famous act scene, apparently 2 weeks after he finished his work on the film, he was attacked and killed by a lion. Eaten alive.
Horrible. And it wasn't just people. There was damage to the film itself. Something like 13,500 feet of film just spontaneously caught fire in the lab. No explanation. Caused major delays.
Yeah, baffling.
But the event that really cemented this whole curse idea, the one everyone points to, involves the special effects guy, John Richardson. Richardson designed all the gruesome death scenes in the movie. There's one really famous one where a character gets decapitated by a sheet of glass flying off a truck.
Mm-hmm. Very memorable.
Well, in 1976, after The Omen was done, Richardson was working on another film in the Netherlands. He was driving with his assistant, Liz Moore. They got into a terrible head-on car crash. Liz Moore was killed instantly. She was cut in half by the wheel of the other car.
Exactly, mirroring the death scene he had designed.
Precisely. The exact, specific, horrific death he had created for the movie.
It's the level of coincidence there is just staggering.
Yeah.
You try to rationalize it, think about confirmation bias, it only remembering the bad stuff that fits the narrative. But this, the specificity is chilling. And then there's that final detail, reportedly from the police report of the accident, a road sign near the crash site. It apparently read, Omen, 66.6 kilometers.
Oh, come on.
That's the report. Omen, 66.6 kilometers.
Okay, that's deeply unsettling. So were these just freak accidents, unbelievable bad luck? Or was something genuinely sinister connected to a film about the birth of the Antichrist? Makes you wonder. All right, one last quick one for you. This one isn't about death or disaster, but it messes with your head in a different way. It's about memory and the Mandela effect. You know the Mandela effect, right? Where lots of people share the same vivid memory of something that just never actually happened.
Yeah, like remembering Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 80s.
Exactly. Well, there's this one specific example tied to movies. A famous quote. Millions of people swear they've heard it. They'll attribute it to, like, Back to the Future or maybe The Big Lebowski, different films. But the quote doesn't exist. It's not in any script. It's not in the movies. You can search everywhere. It was never said.
And what's fascinating about this specific non-existent quote is that it seems to be the only major Mandela effect example with absolutely zero traceable origin.
Hmm.
Usually you can kind of figure out where the false memory came from, a parody maybe, or a common misquote that's spread, something on TV.
Right.
But not this one. Researchers, places like Harvard, University of Edinburgh, they've looked into it. They cannot figure out how this specific line of dialogue that was never written or spoken in the film got lodged so firmly in the collective consciousness. It's a total blank.
A ghost quote, haunting our shared memory. Weird. So tonight we've touched on these fragments, these echoes of real horror, murder, disappearances, these uncanny patterns of tragedy, all linked somehow to the world of movies. It really shows how thin that line can be between the screen and, well, terrifying reality. And the thought maybe to leave you with is this. These are the famous cases, the ones where the connections became obvious or notorious. But how many other films, shows we watch all the time, might have their own hidden, dark stories lurking just behind the scenes, tragedies we just don't know about yet? Thanks for joining us tonight as we shared these stories from the darker side of Hollywood. If these tales give you chills, please do support our channel, Horror Docs. You can like this story, maybe share it with friends who are into unsolved mysteries, and definitely subscribe so you catch our next dive into the shadows. Good night, stay safe out there, and stay curious.